Absolutely, absolutely. So let's take a tiny bit about Vice.
Yeah.
How long you was there?
Okay, so it's an interesting story because before I started working for Vice, I'd never written anything in my life. So I have crazy ADHD.
We're gonna talk about that, please. After.
So, I couldn't focus in school. I was punished a lot. I caused lots of trouble. I got detentions. I got suspended. Eventually, when I was 16, I got kicked out of school. So since I was 16, I have no education, nothing at all. And I had this idea. I was really just joking, and I said to her, "Wouldn't it be funny if I got a job in McDonald's, and on my first day, I go through all the training and everything I need to do, and I go in on my first day, and I try to get fired as quickly as possible." This idea, it should have been just a stupid idea that we laughed about in the pool, and it just, that was as far as it went. So anyway, I went into McDonald's, I caused so much trouble, I got fired in 52 minutes, and I went out, I wrote it up as if it was going to be the first chapter of my book. And then one night, I was having some drinks with my ex-girlfriend, the same girl, and she said, "You know who would love this idea? Vice magazine."
Oh yeah.
At the time, and this was like, 2011, okay? At that time, Vice were the coolest fucking magazine in the world.
Oh yeah.
So I sent this chapter to the editor of Vice. His name was Bruno Bailey at the time in England. And within 2 minutes, this guy, the editor, wrote me back. And he said, "Bro, I love this. We're going to print this, and we'll worry about the legal side later." So I came into this situation. I had no education. I had to teach myself everything about writing. I would read these old, George Orwell books, and I had a notepad, and I taught myself, okay, that's how you use a plural apostrophe. And I had pages and pages teaching me grammar, teaching me sentence rhythm, sentence structure. So I started my own university, and I educated myself.
Yep.
And it turns out the very, very, very first thing that I wrote got published by the biggest magazine in the world somehow. Like, this never happens to any writer ever. It allowed me to launch a career as a writer when I have zero education.
Absolutely.
And this is what I've just finished my first book.
Please, just a glance.
Yeah, I'll give you a glance. This is not the real cover. This is just a mock-up. But this book is called "It Turns Out I'm Not a Loser." And the point of this book is because as somebody with ADHD, we have this recurring problem in the world, and it happens especially with young men with ADHD. And I was in that exact position. I call it the ADHD trap, where our brains don't work in the academic way. So we either get medicated or we get punished.
Yeah,
okay?
I got punished.
You got punished, me too. I didn't ever take any medication for ADHD. I still haven't. But I got punished a lot. So you finish school, and school leaves you thinking you are a loser and you will never do anything impressive or achieve anything significant with your life. So you end up in this place, usually around 18 years old, where you have no education, no hope, and no prospects. And it feels impossible to come out of. I was there, I know.
Me too.
But I was a lucky guy. I had these little bits of coincidences along the way where I had this stupid idea in Greece, and it was my girlfriend that said, "Hey, you should write a book." And then it was my girlfriend that said, "Hey, you should send it to Vice." And then a few years later, I'm a very successful writer. I have my own company. I started my own magazine. I'm doing consultancy work for some of the biggest brands in the world are coming to me for consultancy work.
Imagine that.
And then, 10 years later, I'm working remotely. I'm, making more money than I ever thought was even possible. I'm living in the Caribbean. My life is just perfect. And then one day when I was in Vancouver, I was working from a cafe, and this young man came in. I was about 33 at this time, and he sat opposite me on the sofa, and he pulled out this book about ADHD, and I can't remember what it was called, something like Overcoming Your ADHD or How to Beat ADHD. So I started a conversation. I said, "Hey, bro, how you finding this book?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just starting to read it." He said, "Why? Do you have ADHD?" I said, "Yeah, bro, I've had ADHD since I was a little kid." And he said, how have you found it?" And I said, man, I fucking love it. I love having ADHD. I wouldn't swap it for anything. It's my superpower.
Absolutely.
And this was the first time he had ever heard anybody say anything positive about ADHD. His whole life, he was told, since he was a kid, you have a condition, you have an illness. We need to put you on medication. You're not normal. You don't fit in.
You're stupid.
You're stupid. You can't, you know. And I have a theory for why they do this. I'll get into that later if you want, okay? But I saw so much in this kid of where I used to be. He was in the ADHD trap. And so I wanted to help him. I felt this duty to help him, to go, what the fuck did I do? How did I get from where this kid was to where I am now, where I have all the freedom in the world and I'm financially, successful and emotionally successful and energetically successful? So I started to meet him, but because I hadn't sat down to understand, what did I do? How did I go from there to here? So I couldn't help this kid at the time, but I made a promise to myself that I would spend the next year analyzing every single step along the way that I did to get from that ADHD trap to where I am today. And after lots of analysis, I broke it down to 7 steps. This template for 7 steps. And every time I've used these 7 steps in my life, it has taken my life somewhere new and better. It's opened more doors for me. And so I couldn't help that kid then.
But I can help a lot of people now.
But I dedicated and he was my inspiration. I dedicated my life from then to understand what did I do and how can I explain this to help people. And it's not a book that can guarantee success, but it can guarantee that you will start a journey to something new. And that's the most important part of escaping the ADHD trap. And what's interesting is when I speak to people with ADHD, a lot of them, we have a very similar story, okay? Because we will discover something that we're very passionate about. And when ADHD people discover something they're passionate about, they go into this crazy hyper-focus mode, and that's you can do things that other people, regular people, can't even get close to. But at some point along the way, whatever idea they have fizzles out, and they end up back at the beginning. And when I ask people to tell me your story, tell me, and every time when it doesn't work out, I can point to them to the exact step in these 7 steps and go, look, this is what you didn't do. And because you didn't do this, you couldn't progress to the next step. And boom, your idea just died right there. Yeah. And you ended up back at the beginning. So my mission here is to take away the luck. And I did these 7 steps every time. And every time I did those 7 steps, new doors opened for me. So, but I didn't know about those 7 steps. It was all unconscious. It wasn't until 10 years later that I looked back and said, what the fuck did I do there? The fundamental 7 steps, for me, this is universal. If you don't do those 7 steps, no matter what you're trying to do, it will not take you somewhere new.